back, chefs. My name is Chef Taylor and we're back again with another meeting of the Rooks to Cooks Lunch Club. Today we're going to be making up some sloppy joes that we can enjoy with our families. And we've got a few ingredients to get cut up before we start cooking. So as you see on my board, I've got everything clean and ready to go. The first thing I'm going to show you how to cut up is our red pepper. Now we put a little bit of red pepper in with our sloppy joes because we want a little bit of the sweetness coming through of that pepper. We're not going to use the whole thing, so I'm going to cut up about half of it and the other half we'll save for another recipe. The way that I like to cut up my peppers is I'm going to take off the bottom and the top before I take the seeds out. So just slice off the bottom, and you can see now I can kind of see into it. Slice off the top, right through, and now I can see the inside seeds. So what I'm going to do with my knife is cut a little entryway, and I'm going to go right around my seeds, just rolling the pepper so my seeds all come out together. All the seeds are intact. I haven't got them scattered all over my board or all over my pepper. This can go into the compost, and the rest of this I can work on dicing up. So like I said, we're only going to be using about half this pepper for this recipe. So these I'm going to put to the side. These are perfectly good to use. We never want to throw these away. We'll still dice them up squarely for something else, maybe a frittata or an omelet. And with this, I'm just going to break it down into manageable pieces. I like to cut my pepper skin side up. The skin's a little bit tougher to cut through, so I just find this the easiest way to do it. And same as we do for all of our other dices, we're going to tuck in our fingers, make our little C shape so that everything is nice and safe. And I'm going to start by cutting it into strips. So I'm going to break my pepper down into these nice strips, and then I'm going to cut those strips into little squares until we have our finely diced red pepper. So once I've got them all done in squares, I'm going to turn them so they're horizontally in front of me and finely dice them. Push those to the side and work on the rest of my red pepper. So see how I've got them all broken down into cute little squares? These are going to be great because they're going to fit nicely inside our sloppy joe filling so we can enjoy them with our buns that we're going to serve them with. All right, I'm going to get these into the bowl and off of my board. And we're going to move on to the rest of our ingredients. So we've got some garlic. Our old friend garlic goes in a lot of our recipes, and we're going to work on mincing this up. So same as always, I've got it peeled up and I've taken off that little root end at the bottom. So I'm going to give it a little flatten with my knife, and I'm going to slice one way, gather it together, and then the other. And I'm going to do both cloves of garlic before I start doing that rocking knife motion. So slice lengthwise, flip it. All right, so I'm going to make sure all the garlic is off the sides of my knife. This hand is going to go onto the top of my knife, and I'm going to rock my knife back and forth, keeping the tip of the knife on the cutting board. This allows me to control the size of the garlic that I'm getting and mince it up nice and finely so it's going to cook down and kind of melt into our sloppy joe filling. As the garlic gets kind of pushed away because I'm running my knife through it, I'm going to gather it back together and just keep going until it's nice and small. All right, we've got our minced garlic. Gonna clean it all off with my bench scraper and move it into my bowl. And the last thing we have to do is our onion, So I've already started dicing up some of our onion, and I'm gonna do the rest of it. So we're gonna practice a technique I showed you a couple days ago for dicing our onion. So we're gonna keep it intact at the end, and we're gonna make a few thin cuts horizontally in front of us. And I'm not cutting all the way through the onion. I want to leave it together at this end here. Okay, and now vertically, I'm going to cut through, and it's going to give me those nice little squares. Nice dice on my onion. When I get to the end where I haven't cut it apart, I'm going to flip it over so it's nice and solid on my board and continue dicing. All right, so this is now good to go into my onion bowl. I've got my mise en place ready. Everything is in its place. And we're about ready to start cooking our sloppy joe filling. So I'll see you back in just a second. All right, chefs, I've got my mise en place all ready to go, and we're ready to start cooking our sloppy joes. So before I get cooking, I just want to go through all of the ingredients that I've got here. So today I'm going to be making my sloppy joes with some ground beef, but you can use some cooked lentils, some ground chicken, some crumbled tofu even if you want, lots of options there. I've got our diced onions that we just finished working on, our minced garlic, our diced red pepper, and then here I've got my spice blend. So in here I've got some cumin for a little bit of smokiness, some chili powder, and some smoked paprika. So we are all about playing with the balance of the flavors in these sloppy joes. So that's why I've got those smoky, spicy flavors in there. And then I have some crushed tomatoes out of the can, and that's just gonna make our sloppy joes nice and saucy and sloppy. All right, that's half the fun of this dish. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my burner on. I'm gonna lift up my pan so I can see my flame and control my heat. I want a nice medium-high heat for this, and I'm gonna go ahead and add some vegetable oil to my pan. Now, same as we do with a lot of our recipes, we're gonna start by adding the onion and we're gonna sweat them out. So we want to intensify that flavor and cook out some of that water. So I'm gonna get those working and give these a stir. I want to have these cooked a little bit before I add my garlic, and the reason for that is that our onions are cut much bigger than our garlic. If I put my minced garlic in at the same time with no other liquid in the pan, they might burn before everything is fully cooked through to the level that I want. So I'm gonna layer our vegetables in a certain order so that nothing's gonna burn and nothing's gonna be in the pan too long or for too short of a time. I've also got some sugar here, which is gonna go into our sloppy joes. That balance I'm talking about with the sweet, the smoky, the spicy, sugar definitely is gonna come into play for that. Now my pan is starting to get warm and I can hear that my onions are starting to cook. So when we're cooking, we want to engage all of our senses. I'm gonna start to smell my onions a little bit more. That water's gonna cook out. I'm hearing the sizzling. So I really want to pay attention to what's going on in my pan. Also, make sure that there's nothing near your pan, nothing's too close to you, any sleeves are rolled up, your hair is back, so that you're all safe and ready to go, and nothing's going to distract you or become dangerous while you're cooking. You can see my onions. I want to cook them until they're just about clear or translucent. This is always what we're looking for when we're sweating our onions. If I wanted to caramelize my onions and bring out some of their natural sweetness, I would be looking for a nice golden brown color. So that'd be a little step further past the clear stage. All right, I'm just about ready to add my minced garlic in now. This is our flavor base for our sloppy joes. So this is gonna flavor up our meat, make it super tasty, and also add a little bit of extra moisture from the onions. The next thing I'm gonna put in is my dried spices. I add these in at this stage because I really wanna wake up the spices. Think of them as it's almost like they've been sleeping. They were once whole spices and now they've been ground up and kind of sitting in my cupboard waiting until I'm ready to use them. So I want to wake them up by adding them to my hot pan, and I've got oil in that pan that I've been cooking my onions and my garlic in. And what that hot oil does is it essentially blooms our spices. So it wakes them up, it intensifies their flavor, and the second that they hit that pan, I can really smell it. It's already starting to smell really good in here. So I'm just gonna cook out those spices with my onions and garlic for about a minute, and you can see I'm stirring them to make sure the onions and garlic are fully coated with my spices. Next thing to go in is gonna be my ground beef. Now I'm using my spoon to get the meat out of the bowl. That means that I'm not gonna have to stop and wash my hands. Ground beef can have some bacteria on it when it's in its raw state, so if you do end up touching it with your hands, just do a quick pause and go wash up so that you're not touching anything. Now you should really be able to hear that sizzle now of the heat hitting that ground beef, and it's gonna start letting a little bit of that fat out. It's gonna make our sloppy joes nice and juicy. I wanna get my ground beef about halfway cooked before I start adding my liquid to it and simmering it all together. And ground beef is gonna change color when it starts to cook. So when it went in, you saw it was that really pinky red color. And it's already starting to change a little bit to a brown color. That means that it's starting to cook. Any of the large clumps of ground beef, I'm just gonna break up with the back of my spoon so that it cooks a little bit faster. This is a lunch that comes together really quickly, and it's everyone's favorite. All right, now that my ground beef is mostly fully browned, I'm gonna go ahead and add in my peppers. Give those a quick stir. Once again, those peppers are going to just add a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of crunch, and extra texture to our sloppy joes. And now it's time for the liquids. So I have my crushed tomatoes here from the can. Give that a stir. I want this to all simmer together so that everything is nice and tender and soft when I go to put it on my buns. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my sugar. It might seem weird to be adding sugar to ground beef, but I promise that sweet flavor, it's going to taste almost like, a little bit like ketchup in a good way though, or like a sweet barbecue sauce. And finally, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. So this just adds a savory kind of salty element to it. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Give it another stir. And a pinch of salt. Now I want to let this simmer together for about 5 minutes just so some of that liquid reduces out. The sauce gets a little bit thicker and I know that everything is nice and soft. All those flavors have had a chance to get to know each other, so they're going to taste great when we put them on our buns. I'm going to let this keep going and I'll be back in just a second when we're ready to plate. Alright chefs, so my sloppy joe filling here has been simmering for about 5 minutes. You can see how it's starting to thicken up a little bit. I'm going to give it a little taste and see if it needs any more seasoning. Just a pinch more salt, but I can really taste those sweet, smoky, spicy flavors in there, which is what makes the sloppy joe so delicious. Now I've gone ahead and toasted my bun because I like toasted buns for my sloppy joes. I like that contrast of texture. If you don't want it toasted, you don't have to. You also don't need to use hamburger buns. If you've got bread laying around and you want to make some toast or use some untoasted bread, you can have your sloppy joe however you want it, alright? So I'm going to go ahead and plate this. And the nice thing about sloppy joes is that the word sloppy is right in the name. So you don't have to be too fussy with the way that you're doing this. You just want to make sure you get a lot of that filling on that bun. It's not a sloppy joe unless you make a little bit of a mess when you go to eat it. But I promise these are delicious. Alright, I'm going to put my top on. And there we have it. Rooks to Cook's Sloppy Joes. I hope you had fun cooking along with me today, chefs. And I hope you come back and join me again tomorrow for the next meeting of the Rooks to Cook's Lunch Club.